Thank you. This is another session of the 2 Cents Podcast. I'm Nino. Appreciate you people joining with me. I'm going to get right to it. This has been an ongoing epidemic that's going on this past year, and I think that you cannot chime in on it enough. Why are there so many Achilles tendons injuries in the NBA? Man, it was ridiculous. And I mean, it was an epidemic. Recent spikes in Achilles tendons injuries in the NBA. The top 3 right offhand. NBA 2025 finalist Tyrese Haliburton, last year's NBA champion Boston Celtics Jason Tatum, and Milwaukee Bucks Damian Lillard. These injuries are likely due to a combination of factors including increased player workload, changes in footwear, and the demands of modern basketball shoe designs have been mentioned. These issues appear to be more complex, involving a training regimen, recovery time, and overall intensity of the game. And I know they say, Pete, injuries are going to be in the game. But man, these Achilles tendons was just coming out of nowhere. And I know things are going to happen. And these are fine-tuned, top-notch athletes. I mean, some people are going to say, even though I know this was Oklahoma City Thunder year, remember, Tyrese Haliburton in the 2025 finals, the last 2 games, he was dealing with a bad leg injury. But see, look how compensation goes with it. It went from his calf, and then finally, in Game 7, he ended up tearing his Achilles tendon, But it's a lot of circumstances that I'm going to make points about in dealing with this. We know how Jason Tatum is a beast, a well-fine athlete. And remember, when he went down in the New York Knicks series, I believe the New York Knicks series, when he tore his Achilles, and the Knicks ended up taking Boston Celtics. Remember though, the Knicks, that was a big injury because that game was still in hand, and then Jason Tatum went down. And of course, we know Dame Lillard, and as I look at Dame Lillard, he's a 3-point sharp shooter. So his legs come into a factor, a big percentage, or a big main factor of his 3-point shooting. And as I was looking at KD, on the KD and Steve Nash and LeBron, they had a podcast, and Kevin Durant made a real important but a certain certified fact about something. When you shoot threes at the level that they shoot threes, and how Damian Lillard shoot threes from such a far away from the rim, he has to use his legs. And KD pointed out that, and I believe this is true too, when you coming back on Achilles, when you coming back on Achilles tendons, you cannot even use your calf because you got to let the tendon heal. So right then and there, one of your calves, especially the one that the non-injured calf, is going to be bigger than the injured calf because you cannot use the calf until the tendon heals. And so KD made a big point there, and so that is facts. And then right then and there, Kevin Durant, possibly one of the greatest all-time scorers of all time. Remember, he tore his Achilles tendon. Remember when he came back? So I mean, these Achilles tendons are this, man. They're just dropping out the sky. I mean, they're just you can't get around them. One of the factors they was talking about with the Achilles tendon injury is increased player workload, longer seasons and playoffs. And it's just not longer seasons and playoffs. It's parity in the NBA. And a lot of times, these playoffs are going 6 and 7 games, for this one round. And then think about it too. You don't get a lot of time when they are playing every other night. You're traveling, so that's a lot of wear and tear. NBA seasons are longer with more games extending into the playoffs and sometimes even international competition. And that's true. Players are expected to train harder and more frequently, even during the off season, to maintain peak performance leading to overuse and less recovery time. Well, just think about it. If you won the NBA championship and it's your year, it falls into the 4th year where you have to go to the Olympic and you are, selected as one of the members of the Olympic team, you really are playing basketball year round. And even playing into the finals, even when you go and play for the Olympic team, for the USA Olympic team, you still have to train. You are not getting no time. That's a lot of wear and tear on your joints, on your tendons, on your muscles. That's a lot of it. And like I said, these are top peak performance athletes. These are top athletes. But still, when you just steady doing something, you don't get no rest. And not only no rest, you don't get no real recovery time. They gonna bend and they gonna break. And they are expected to train harder. Now, even though a lot of teams are their NBA years or their NBA season is over in 82 games, the top athletes, a lot of athletes train year round, even if they're not playing in international play. They train year round. You have to, because you got to keep up with the Joneses. You got to train, because if you don't, the competition level and these athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster will go right past you. So that's a lot of wear and tear. It's really no downtime. Remember back where the great athletes would, play their season, train, but then they would lay off. But now you can't, because you'll get left. You'll get left. You'll be behind. You'll be behind. You got to keep up with the talent. So you have to train the year round, even if you go to the playoffs, or if you don't, if your year ends in 82 games, you got to train year round. And then there's so many, genetics and so many ways of training, with technology and everything. You really don't get no rest. You get a little downtime, but you don't get no rest. And point blank, the recovery time a lot of times is just not enough. It's just not enough. The specialization at young ages. Some experts suggest that athletes specializing in basketball at a young age may prove to overuse injuries due to the repetitive strain of specific body parts, like the Achilles Tendons. Well, this is when these guys are one and done and coming out early, because their body a lot of times is not fully developed. And the regiment of an NBA season, if you go to the playoffs and you make it to the champion, is second to none. A lot of times back in the day before the one done, when they was coming out at 22 and 23 years old, their body was fully developed. But you get a phenomenon now, they go to college 1 year and they're in the NBA at 19 and 20. And a lot of times you might be a big athlete, but most of the time, them young athletes haven't filled out as far as their body. They still growing. They haven't got strong as they're going to get. Their muscles haven't maximized or developed into the full size of which they're going to develop. So right then and now, they coming out and, they putting a lot of strain on their muscles. That's why I think a lot of times, a lot of coaches know in the college game that an athlete has the talent to go, one and done, but stay a couple of years just to work out and let your body develop, because the NBA is something serious. It is something serious. Like I say, just playing the 82 game schedule, you playing every other night, you're traveling, you're getting minimized, you're getting minimum hour of sleep. You're not getting great hours of sleep. I mean, you played in Boston, maybe Tuesday night. Then the game is winning into overtime. Okay, so now you got to hop on a plane, and then you got to go all the way to Phoenix, because you played in Phoenix. Just say if it's a back-to-play, you play in Phoenix 7 o'clock that next day. So now you getting into Phoenix airport probably about what? You done played in Boston, it's overtime. For one thing, that done went from East Coast time to West Coast time. So that's a different, that's a different scenario right there. I mean, that's a 3 hour difference. So y'all landing at Phoenix Airport probably what 6 o'clock Phoenix time, and that's probably 9 o'clock Boston time. If where you just left a 3-hour differential in time zone. So right now your body is already tripping out, and then you don't get much sleep. Then you got to get a walkthrough. Then you play that game that night, and that's just if you playing a back-to-back. Even if you getting a night's rest, you playing every other day. It goes so fast because still you want to go and have a walkthrough, but you want to get a little training. You're not getting proper sleep. You get into these airports in these cities late, and then you got to go over coaches meeting, players meeting, things like that. Man, it's just a lot to behold. Shoe design and footwear, high top versus low top. While some believe low top shoes may increase the risk of Achilles injuries, the evidence is not conclusive. Low top shoes offer benefits like increased ankle flexibility and footwork, but might not provide as much support as high top shoes. Well, I have always heard that because, simple fact, the high top supports your ankle, and your ankle is a big part of your Achilles tendons. But I know a lot of people wear low tops, and then what they'll do, because a lot of athletes get their feet taped from to the bottom of their foot all the way up to their ankle. The high top gives more support around the ankle and the Achilles tendon, but I guess you can say that, but I just think still it's just the toll of you not getting no rest. You banging them tendons, playing them games, and this not, it is like this. When you keep hitting your head against something hard, what it's going to eventually do? And it can be hard as a rock. It's going to eventually bust. And that's what it is, I believe, to Achilles tendon. Of course, I would recommend high tops than low tops. But a lot of athletes play in low tops. And even with these kids, Jason Tatum had on high tops. Tyrese Haliburton had on high tops. I believe Lillard had on high tops. Now, I think KD in his situation, he had on low tops. And still with the high tops, you have a big major tape job from the trainers. I think it's just the wear and tear, man. It's the workload. The NBA is a serious, it's a serious journey, man. It's not no joke. I mean, it's really not. You're not getting paid all them dollars. You're not getting these maximum contracts. You're not getting 60, 70, 30, 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year, and it's just going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be something into this, and you got to earn this money. And a lot of this earning this money is the wear and tear on your body. And that's going from young, old, veterans, or whatever. And indeed, some experts do believe that the type of shoes worn by players can also contribute. The midsole and shank of the shoe can also influence how force is transferred to the Achilles. Yeah, they can. Because if your sole is built a certain way, say like if your sole is kind of built like this, kind of like on an incline, whereas your sole is built flat, that's a different way because you're pushing off real hard on your Achilles. So when you pushing off like that, I think a lot of times the sole difference is more support toward the Achilles instead of this flat. Because, again, the tape jobs can only do so much. And a lot of times, and remember back, people, it used to be a lot of times these athletes' ankles would get sprung or these athletes' ankles would have a major injury. Now it's these Achilles, man, because it's just maybe these soles, but of course, when you're a big NBA a superstar, a star, or even coming to the NBA, a rookie that's coming out of college and presumed they're going to be that guy or whatever, you get these shoe deals. And when getting these shoe deals, they are making these shoes all different kind of ways overseas where they trying to make it sleek and beautiful, but the athlete is trying to play in them. And a lot of times, it's not really contoured towards the athletes, how the athlete's foot is constructed, I believe, Because, again, these shoe deals are still about money, Yeah, the athlete is wearing these shoes, But the basis of this athletes wearing these shoes is getting these athletes to get their shoes sold to the civilian consumers like us, in which we're not playing no rigorous NBA season. These shoes that we're buying, that these athletes are endorsing or wearing, we're just walking around in everyday life. We're not playing an 82-game season. We're not playing every other night. We're just walking around. Our Achilles tendons in good shape. So I believe how they build them shoes sometimes could be a factor. But still, again, it's just the workload. It just athletes are not getting no rest. And I know they're in tip-top shape. And then athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster now. That's a lot of force. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of pressure on the Achilles tendons. Pre-existing condition, obesity, hypertension, and steroid use can weaken the tendon and make it more vulnerable. Well, I guess that's a point too. But now, a lot of these athletes are not obese. So I don't see that point coming out. I mean, they might be big in size, but they were strictly, when they came into the NBA, they was big in size. Say like a Zion Williamson and now he has did a great job on shedding pounds and getting himself in shape. But we talking about obesity. We talking about heavy weight. A lot of these athletes, they not really obesity. Now, the steroid use, I know it have been said that a lot of NBA players, a few of them, have been, suspended for substance use, for steroids, or taking things to enhance their performance. But that will get to anybody. Now, I'm not going to decline that, because steroid use, what it does, you're not naturally getting big. It accelerates how your muscles and your tendons grow. And so right there, you shouldn't be, that shouldn't even be touched. That can cause that, because as we said, you're not naturally letting your muscles or your tendons, maximize and get the biggest and grow and get largest through growth. You're doing it with the assistance of a drug, and we also know assistance of drugs can't lead down nothing but a dark road. And so that's crazy. The hypertension, well, yeah, high blood pressure, but how many athletes really have high blood pressure that can play in the NBA? Because right then and there, hypertension, that will not only deal with your tendons, that would deal with, your heart and you playing. The NBA is up and down. You steady moving. You going back and forward. Sometimes you constantly never stopping. So, I mean, it could be hypertension. I haven't really think about this fact. Now, this point I pulled up and did my research on. I'm 50-50 on that. And then, like I say, how many NBA players that came into the NBA, or how many basketball players have high blood pressure problems? Because I just don't see how you can play in the NBA or any sports and have high blood pressure, because that's just too much. I mean, you already running all day. You already exerting yourself to a certain capacity. So I just don't see how that can just really come into play. But hey, I guess it is what it is. So maybe that point can be valid. Inaccurate stretching and warm up. Man, I always have a problem with that word. Proper stretching and warm up. Let me just say that. Not properly preparing the Achilles tendon for intense activity can increase the risk of injury. Well, that's anything. That's why they tell a lot of times athletes warm up hours before the game. You got the stretch bands. A lot of athletes run, and a lot of athletes do warm up significantly. They warm up like they should warm up. But again, I just think these athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster. And then sometimes it's like you got a big, strong bridge, that a lot of traffic goes through daily. And it has taken all that pressure for years. But finally, the cracks and the crevices of taking all that traffic going to come into play and that bridge will weaken and fold, and then it will collapse. And I just think that's with them Achilles tendons, because these athletes, I see them training. Why do you think a lot of athletes come to the arena 3 and 4 hours before the game time? Yeah, they practicing shooting and working on their skills, but they doing a lot of stretching too. I done seen LeBron do a lot of stretching. I done seen Steph do a lot of stretching. You know, I done seen a lot of them do a lot of stretching. The great ones, they do hours of stretching and stretching. Then sometimes the inevitable is going to happen, because again, you are putting a lot of pressure on the Achilles tendons. And okay, so they said, well, you don't stretch or warm up, right? Well, then how much do you have to stretch and get ready before the game? Because you don't want to over warm up or over stretch, and then your muscles will be tired by the time to get the game. By the time the game gets going, the purpose of warming up and stretching is to exactly what he said: get your muscles warm, and then you kind of just ease it to the game. Because the NBA game is 48 minutes. 4 12 grueling quarters of back and forth, combated, going at each other. You know, mano a mano, man on man. So, you know, you got to work up to that. Media focus and perception. While the focus listed above are genuine contributors, the perception of an increase in Achilles tendons may also be influenced by increased media coverage and public awareness of these injuries. Well, you know the media gonna take anything and run with it. But I mean, it has been, because they're not only Achilles tendons injuries, there's a lot of injuries. I mean, think about it. Kyrie blowed out his knee, you know. A lot of times they are overweight, things like that. But the media, what they do is they see a trend, they see an epidemic or something, and then they take it and run with it. And think about it like this. The media also seen these big-time stars was getting these Achilles tendons injuries. As I just mentioned, when I first started out and opened up with my podcast, Tyrese Haliburton, Dame Lillard, Jason Tatum. Them mainstays, them big-time factors, that's a lot of big-time money in the NBA that sells the NBA, that entertain people, not only in the arenas, but as us watching on TV that people want to see. So again, the media, they are only reporting on things that they see, but it is way more injuries than that. It's way more. There's something always going on. People pull their hamstrings, but them Achilles tendons are a little bit, they're a little bit common right now. I'm not going to even, think about it. I had to think about, I forgot Kyrie actually blowed out his knee, because I had forgot about a moment. And I was thinking about, man, Kyrie Irving did tear his Achilles tendon, but actually he tore his ACL. But these Achilles tendons are big injuries, and what can we do? Can we make new shoes that will allow the athlete to still play as this top-notch performers, but also will protect the Achilles area, the ankle area, because they all, the Achilles, the ankle, and then, it all goes to the knee, will protect the leg. It's just, I think it's just the wear and tear. It's playing international, when you're playing the Olympics. And these are great athletes, and us as fans want to see always the best out there, because we paying money. But again, no matter how great the athletes are, some of them still will crack. LeBron James, the king, is a machine, but he even had an injury down the stretch. When they got ousted in the NBA playoffs against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, he didn't express it, or he didn't come out with it till they lost, because that's not the man he gonna talk about. You never blame, you getting defeated on the injury, but hey, that is what it is. Now remember, Luka even hurt his leg. That's why I heard now Luka is now in tip-top shape. I haven't seen him, but they said this is not the chubby fat Luka now. Luka is in tip-top shape. And remember, Luka was a monster when he wasn't in shape. So I can't wait to see him when he's now then went and got in shape, shedded them pounds, toned that fat until, muscle, and there you go. Why are there so many Achilles tendons injuries in the NBA? Man, that's crazy. I hope this upcoming year we can do something about it and limit the injuries. Because the NBA is a beautiful thing, but then again, we don't want the stars, the ones that fill up the seats, the ones that get the big contracts, the ones that we love to see as we watching TV. We don't want them to get the injuries, because if you take them out of the game, then what do we want to see? Why are there so many Achilles tendons injuries in the NBA? Who knows? 2 cents. This is my podcast.